Hello and welcome to my vlog, Bölcsül Deșteptăciunilor. Today we are going to do an English language vlog about a book which I really enjoyed. The book is called The Enigma of Arrival. It was written by V.S. Naipaul, a really famous writer belonging to the Postcolonialist movement. V.S. Naipaul was of Indian ethnicity. He was born in Trinidad and Tobago, a little island off the coast of South America, which belonged to the British Empire during the 19th century. Age 19, he moved to England, winning a scholarship to study at Oxford, and he settled there in the United Kingdom, where he spent most of his life, authoring a series of novels which won him widespread recognition. He first of all won the Booker Prize and then the Nobel Prize. He lived a really long life. He died a few years ago, and he left a very prolific work behind. Now, I know he is most known for a novel called The House for Mr. Biswas, which I haven't read yet. I read The Enigma of Arrival, which is quite an interesting book, a really cute book. It's a work of autobiographical fiction. It charts his journey from Trinidad and Tobago to the United Kingdom and a few decades of his life there. The novel starts in his middle age, when he was living in the British countryside, on a former manor, on a little house on the grounds of a manor which had belonged to a rich family for a few generations. The image which he portrays of the British countryside is that of the decaying gentry. Um, the grounds on which his house was built, the house on which his cottage was built, had belonged for a few generations to a very rich family who was far away in a process of decay. The family had lost its previous status. The farm was no longer prosperous. It no longer won revenue from it no longer won revenue from agriculture, and it was being portioned off and oh, so the author creates this image of the fall of the once rich social class in the countryside. Um, I would like here to make a little reference to the novels of the 19th century, the British novels of the 19th century. If you look at Jane Austen's novels or at The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte, you see these really rich British families living on these luxurious manors with really big grounds in the countryside. Now, in this novel, which presents an image of the rural life in England in the 20th century, you see these once rich families losing their social status, losing their prosperity, and this really is quite relevant for the evolution of British rural economics in the 19th and the 20th century. You see a once prosperous endeavor losing its aura of success and transforming itself into a shadow of what it had previously been. And the owner of the manor, of the grounds on which the narrator's cottage is built, makes quite a modest income from renting cottages to his tenants. At one point, a great transformation of the grounds is attempted. A lot of agricultural machinery is brought in the vicinity of the narrator's cottage in an attempt to transform the fields of the domain into a prosperous agricultural enterprise. This fails. Obviously, from an economic point of view, you could tell that the British countryside was transformed by the liberalization of commerce internationally, which led to a lot of competition from other countries with more favorable conditions, permitting better prices and better quality in agriculture, a fact which led to the decay of British agriculture and to the fall of these once rich British families who owned large grounds in the countryside. Now, the narrator presents the environment of this British domain. He charts the lives of several characters surrounding him, living in other cottages. Thus, he paints quite a complex image of British rural life. The image of rural economics is accompanied by an image of rural domestic life. You see a few characters whose evolution is followed. Their stories are not necessarily ones of success. In fact, you see these private dramas unfolding. You see pain and sufferance and failure on a small scale, the scale of the existence of private individuals. The present time of the narration is intertwined with the past time of narration. On the one hand, you have the present time of the narrator's life in rural England, and on the other hand, you have his past, which is charted from his departure from Trinidad and Tobago to his present life in the British village. Now, what surprised me about his story is this, shall we call it, reverse colonialism, because what happened historically was that British colonists, amongst other nations, moved to the Americas. Now you have the reverse happening, natives from America moving in Europe. And what is most interesting about this development is this image of otherness. Moving to the United Kingdom, the main character becomes very aware of his otherness. He becomes very aware about the great differences between himself and everybody else surrounding him, and he also discovers that this fabulous world of the Orient, in his case, this fabulous world of Western society, is not exactly what he had imagined it to be. He had this really glamorous image of the Occident, and in reality, things were a bit different, not necessarily better or worse, but certainly different. Often, the reality of a certain fact is miles away from what you imagine it to be. You also have this parallel between the future he had imagined for himself and the future he actually crafted for himself. Um, it's interesting to see really this parallel between the imaginary and the real. And I think that his passage from imagination to realization is maybe one of the most interesting stories of personal evolution in recent literature. Definitely, the novel is extremely relevant for the theme of post-colonialism. Moreover, you have a very interesting situation here because the character, just like the real life person of V.S. Naipaul was actually of Indian ethnicity. The British in the 19th century moved a lot of Indian ethnics to Trinidad and Tobago, and you have this wonderful image of multiculturalism. Asian people living in South America and then moving to the United Kingdom. This creates quite an interesting image. Overall, I would say the tone of the book isn't particularly sad or happy. It's more like the author creates this bittersweet image of reality, which is affected by a lot of imperfection, a lot of private drama, a lot of low intensity pain, or in some cases high intensity pain. So even though the action is set in in a quiet and calm environment, a lot of shocking and disturbing things happen. And you see here that a lot of the um, strong emotions and experiences in life belong to quite bland environments. So living a life of drama doesn't necessarily come with moving to a very crowded and loud place like a great metropolis. It can happen in the most isolated and um, calm places, just like the British countryside. I would highly recommend this book because it is impeccably written. It's a very nice story, laid out in beautiful prose, very simple, very clear, but also with a subtle poeticity to it. Also, I find that this theme of multiculturalism and immigration is relevant, extremely relevant in the world of today, where millions of people are migrating to foreign lands, and where you have this wonderful melange of religions and cultures of backgrounds coexisting next to each other, creating this very complex and forever changing mosaic of cultures. So I would also recommend this book because for most of us Europeans, it presents an image of our society seen through the eyes of a person with a different background. This book, even though its main character is of an Indian originating from South America, is mostly focused upon Western society, and here you see a perspective which is completely different from the usual one. Overall, an extremely interesting read, a book which I highly recommend and that I highly enjoyed. Now, thank you for watching this video, for coming on this journey with me. I will soon post a new video, one which will probably be in Romanian. Have a wonderful day and see you next time.